8-Bit Breakdown.
What's up, everyone? This is Fear, and you're listening to 8-Bit Breakdown. As always, my partner in crime, my lover, my additional host here, we have...
So don't tell everybody our secrets, Mike.
Sorry.
Kevin Moore. Or Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin
Kevin.
Moore. As always, we're going to do our dives into heavy metal gaming. We have zero filters, zero BS per usual. Well, there is quite a bit of BS. But
I feel like we do have a slight filter with us, which is okay. I'm okay with it.
There's minimal filter. There is, we have to.
We have full-time jobs.
We have full-time jobs, and just to have just a little bit of respect, we have to have slight filter.
My kids might watch this.
Kids, family, loved ones.
My mom. That's going to be an ongoing gag. Just talking
sorry,
about
Mom.
Sorry. Mike, I am really excited. Number one, that this is podcast number 2, and that's exciting. And I got to tell you, I'm excited to do these, man. Like, we talked about it for so long that I feel like we had so much to talk about, and I'm just excited to be able to do this now. It's really special to be able to do it with you, because
we go back, dog.
This
has always been our thing.
I'm winking.
Oh yeah, there's hard winking going on.
So let's jump right into it, Mike. I think one thing is that we do have an Instagram.
Yeah, no,
we have everything now.
Yeah, we've been kicking off a lot of different social media, guys. With that being said, we have TikTok at 8bit.breakdown. We have Instagram at 8bit.breakdown. We have Twitch, which we haven't used yet, but that'll be the intent of when me and Kevin do some game streaming. Usual banter, maybe a new release that comes out. We can stream that for you guys and get some chime-ins and live chats going on. We do have a YouTube as well. That is 8-Bit Breakdown. If anything, if you go to our Instagram, we do have a link tree that you can go on and find all of our social medias on there. So if you do have Instagram.
Mike's OnlyFans is on there.
That's also on there. It's only like $2 a month. It's pretty cheap. I know there's a lot of competition out there, so I gotta make do.
He's cooking.
I'm
cooking on his OnlyFans.
I'm cooking all right. But make sure to follow us on many avenues. We also have Facebook, of course, as well, so you can look us up there, 8-Bit Breakdown. Feel free to chime in, DM us on any of those platforms if you have any questions or suggestions, something you'd like to hear, something for us to talk about. We've had the mailbags coming in, so feel free to bring questions in through there. We'd certainly be happy to answer it. So
yeah, and tell your friends, you fucking assholes.
Yeah,
just kidding. I'm not talking to you behind
I think he was
screen.
talking to me.
But let's get started.
Today, let's go.
Today we're going to start with gaming this time. This is going to be quick because we have a couple different things that we were going to talk about. We actually have notes this time. We prepped for this one.
It was a slight bit of prep.
Just slight. So, Mike, this is we're going to call this the Quickie. The Quickie. This is a Quickie section. Less than a couple minutes at rapid fire. What game should our listeners play right now? Doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter genre. What game do they need to play right now?
Right now, headliners. If you have PC, if you have Steam, which if you have PC and you're PC gaming, you probably got Steam. Get headliners. It's probably some of the most fun I've had in quite some time. For what is it, $7-8? The premise is you're a reporter, you and 3 of your friends, and I think they just pushed an update, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin. I just seen that today where you can have up to 8 people now. Change some of the settings, make it even more difficult.
Oh my God.
But the premise being is you're a reporter with a camera, not a camcorder or anything, but you go to various different levels and you have to take pictures of the craziest shit going on. So there could be, aliens come in and there's different types of aliens and they're either killing you or the other journalists with you or some of the military. There's military in the game. So you have to get these epic action shots, and the better the shot you get, the more points you get, and so long as you make that threshold, you make it to the next round, and hopefully you can keep that going because it only gets harder and harder. The threshold gets higher, the enemies get harder, and overall, it's slightly scary. It's absolutely hilarious, and I can't recommend it enough for the price point. So if you do have PC and you got a couple friends to play with, I would certainly recommend playing Headliners. So,
Like lethal, it's like lethal content,
yeah,
lethal
a lethal,
content, and
lethal,
lethal company,
yeah, lethal company.
lethal company, and content warning. I get those
Yeah,
fucking mixed up.
which so all three of those games are essentially the same. If you played one of those,
You play 'em
it's
all.
it's all in the same vein. So what about you, Kevin? What is your play this game right now?
Oh, so mine is Soma.
Mm,
Soma. S as in shit. O as in orifice.
mhm,
M as in menopause.
mm,
A as in apple.
yes,
Soma. Came out about 10 years ago. I am not even going to dig into it. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. If you have not played it, if you have not seen or heard anything about it, you need to play it. Go in blind. It is a psychological horror, thriller, science fiction game. It's on every console, I believe, PC, PlayStation, Xbox. Dude, but what a life changing video game that was for me. I look at
mhm,
life completely different. If you're big into philosophy and things like that, and what if those kind of questions, oh man, dude, prepare to get your mind just absolutely fucked. As a matter of fact, there we go. I'm gonna add that ticker on there.
oof,
Soma will blow your fucking mind. It really will. It's probably one of the best video games I've ever played from a narrative standpoint. Don't go in thinking it's
wow,
going to be like Resident Evil or Dead Space. You are under the sea, so if you have what's that called when you're scared of probably uh oh crap, claustrophobia. If you've got claustrophobia or like a fear of the water, like fear of
mhm.
water, then you're probably not going to enjoy it. But
Yeah, I'm not gonna
great
throw
game,
names
man.
out, but there's a relative in my family that it's very close. It's not a fan of the water situation. You may
How do
know
they
him.
how do they live with themselves?
I don't know. Well, you
Wait, do
he's
I like them?
yes. It's,
Okay, God
it re
bless them.
it he related to my wife.
Oh, okay,
But no,
and moving on.
yeah, he's fine. If you're listening to this, buddy, I ain't throwing your name out there. But,
We do like him. I do like
oh,
him
we
a
will.
lot.
He's a great guy. But
And
yeah,
so,
he makes do. I don't think he'd play Soma though.
but it's great. It's a great game, man. I can't recommend it enough. So,
Yeah.
so now on to the meat and potatoes of
Mm.
the show, and I am very excited about this. And I tell you, my favorite thing about podcasts is when you really get to learn something about the hosts and they like talk about themselves or what they grew up with or those kind of things. So Mike and I sat and I kind of want to dissect this before we get into it because this is obviously going to take up the majority of the time. But our next segment is metal albums that shaped us into basically who we are today. Now, keep in mind, this started as a our favorite albums of all time, and it progressively changed because we just could not decide on. So I think our list was what we had like 15, and we're
If
like,
not
bro,
more.
we gotta tone it down. And then we changed it to best metal albums of all time, and we still ended up with 15. And we were like, how about we just stick with metal albums that shaped us basically to who we are today? Now, keep in mind, some of these are not going to be, I want to kind of put this disclaimer out here. Some of these albums are probably not perfect by any means. You may if you didn't listen to him then and you listen to him now, there's a couple that you're probably gonna say, "What the fuck is wrong with these guys?" But they're monumental into either they inspired us or they got us into that type of music or that genre. So, and it's good because I really like it because there's a lot of different. I think both you and I, Mike, we had some really good picks as far as what we did pick.
It's definitely a broad scope.
And I haven't from the final ones. I haven't seen yours. I know that I sent you mine, so hopefully you didn't see mine.
No.
But I haven't seen yours, which I'm excited to see what yours are.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start, I guess,
Yeah,
with
you want to
my
start? I'm good
side.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll go ahead and do for the listeners at home, if you're watching it, I will have some screenshots of the albums. Otherwise, I will describe them just so you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, for all intents
So
and purposes, everybody, Mike is the guy in the chair. Like that, this man makes magic happen. And we may sound very homosexual sometimes, but it's only because I love the shit out of this guy.
it's and
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Thank you for what you do. Thank
I
you for
try,
your,
man.
thank you for your trust.
I'm just a nerd at heart and love doing this sort of thing. So at the end of the day, I just I like I like nerd now, bro. Whether it be video gaming, whether it be dissecting metal, tangenting on this podcast, it's
That's my
just fun.
favorite.
Yeah.
Something
So
about
without further ado, let me go ahead and get this situated for us guys here. So, oh, hold on.
what? why, why do you have a random picture of Rod Stewart?
I don't, not, hold- I don't know, man. So, first album, Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time. This probably really was the album that shaped metal for me at a very young age. So, given some backstory here, and I know we slightly talked about it on the last podcast. My dad is a huge metalhead, always has been a metalhead. We're about 20 years apart. So, I'm 36 now, he's 56. So, at this point, we've always shared a lot of common interests. So, he grew up in the 80s, during the forefront of in his mid late teens, things like Metallica, Anthrax, uh, you name it, Megadeth, Slayer, all these like early thrash metal bands that set the standard at that point. But prior to that, he did get into Iron Maiden. But this album sticks out with me not only because the songs on it, something about this album cover, Somewhere in Time, always just kinda stuck out with me as, like, drew me in as a kid. So, if I had to gauge, probably 7, 6, 7 years old, picking up, like, a cassette tape of my dad's and being like, "Whoa, like, look at that guy." I don't know, maybe it almost has kind of like a video game influence thing going
Does.
on with it,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
very, even when I was a kid at, like, Sam Goody in Music Land and Suncoast, RIP. I
Oh,
remember
man.
seeing Iron Maiden albums, had no idea who they were, and I was like, "Dude, these album covers are fucking awesome."
Oh, they're epic, man.
They really are. So what's a song on here that you really do you remember your first song you heard?
Oh, it always I mean, I can name a few, but Wasted Years was always the one that stuck out as, like, the pinnacle song. I'm sure you know Wasted Years. Besides that, I mean, the self-titled track, Somewhere in Time, then probably 3rd, Stranger in a Strange Land. I know what is his name? Adrian? Adrian, I believe, the other guitarist. There's something about the solo in that song that mind you, the song being "Stranger in a Strange Land," it's about this guy who's, you know, there's nothing around him anymore. Um, he's by himself, but there's something about this solo that, like, Adrian does in there that's just, like, makes you feel lonely in a good way. I mean, it's just like, he paints imagery almost with the guitar, and it's crazy to explain like that, but
And
between those 3 songs,
this was big with the this was part of the British fucking takeover with
oh, yeah, the new
metal.
wave of British heavy metal. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Between them, Judas Priest. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
those 2
yeah,
being really the forefront.
we may come back to Judas Priest here in a
Oh,
second.
yeah. Um, I mean, the albums since if you have if any of you guys haven't heard this, this album is still aged beautifully. This is in my opinion, a huge, huge just a different take than what Iron Maiden typically does. Just the general, like, ambiance and, like, futuristic sounds that they have going on to it in it rather, makes it feel like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people still borrow that sort of sound, like, to this day. This is really like a for its time being, what is it, 1986, this album was, like, very forefront. I mean, it was different in comparison to a lot of things at the time, and, I mean, you can hear elements in definitely other bands, and I know for a fact, Trivium has brought up that not only Iron Maiden, but Somewhere in Time was a highly influential album for them. That just the how diverse it is compared to, like, anything else Maiden has done. So, yeah,
I mean,
that's
yeah, they're grandfathers of the heavy metal.
oh, certainly, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I you don't even have to like metal, but you probably know those are one of those, like, band names you've probably heard at some point. You might not know who they are, but you probably heard that name at some point. It's kind of
Who,
like
Iron Maiden?
Iron Maiden.
I feel like if you don't know, if everyone's heard Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
If even if you don't like them, you still respect them. I don't think I've ever heard
certainly.
anybody say I hate Iron Maiden
Yeah,
or they suck. They would just say
yeah.
they're not my cup of tea. So what's next? What do you have next?
All right, this was kind of a neck and neck. So, mind you, these are 2 influential albums in my childhood growing up. So, having the dad that I did, so this one kind of being really the a standard. Um, we'll go into the next one. So that is
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Metallica's Master of Puppets. That and I'm it may sound cliche to some people out there, but, I'm far from any poser. I grew up with this. I was potentially listening to this still shitting in my diapers with my dad having me in the stroller next to him, just, watching me, and this probably just on full blast,
Big
far
ass head
beyond
bouncing around.
my big I couldn't even lift my head up, but I was headbanging. I got strong neck now because of it. So, I mean, honestly, this is highly regarded as one of the, most epic, thrash metal albums of all time.
Oh
It's
man, what a
the
great album.
perfect balance of melody and aggression that I don't think really stood out until this album came around. Like, there's just so much dynamics, like, going on in it. But yeah, I mean, this hands down was just a solid album that will always kind of take shape. I know I mean, it's hard to really put a finger on the first 4 Metallica albums. Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All. Like,
Yeah.
those are all quintessential. I mean, we could even throw, Black Album, we can throw Garage Inc. I mean, early Metallica was just fantastic, but this album will always stand true in my heart as like, "Whoa, what is this?" Like, hearing Master of Puppets and, like, Battery, like, the first song when that comes
Oh
on,
fuck. Yep.
hearing and you gotta think, like, Orion was on that, just the instrumental song that's that I forgot, it's like 8 minutes or something like that. It's crazy long, but it's Cliff Burton and his just epic bass playing, just
Oh
riding that
man.
entire song, dude. There's just amazing, amazing artistry in this album, and it's, all through and through. I can listen to this album front to back, and it's like, "Oh, it's already over?" I can't tell you how many times I've listened to this album on repeat, and it's just like, "Oh, it's easy to do, man."
Yeah, this is a man, what can you say about Master of Puppets that hasn't been said though? That's like
Right.
I mean, it's I mean, if this would be a top 10 best album of all time easily. I'm pretty sure it probably is. Like in the
Yeah.
world. Like it's just it's flawless.
And again, one of these bands that's also a household name. I mean, I would
Yeah.
go out on the limb to say that, Iron Maiden, huge and all. Metallica, there is not a single person in this world that probably has not heard the name Metallica.
Dude, I could buy their shirts at Target.
Yeah, exactly.
They're fashion shirts now.
Yeah.
That's how big they are.
Kids just buy Metallica shirts just thinking it's a cool font, dude.
What's your favorite song on that album? They're like, "Oh, Saint Anger."
Saint anger around my oh,
Oh,
DMCA
dude,
warning.
Lars is gonna fucking
Oh,
come and
dude.
gut you.
I'm
He
already
looks like he looks like
oh,
Beetlejuice now,
oh,
but that's
crap.
beside the
Hang on.
point.
I think I just got an email from him. He said, "See you in court, asshole."
Yeah, tell him
Okay,
to fuck
well,
off.
I'll worry about that later.
Tell him to
Um,
get better at drumming, and then we'll go from there.
oof. He was good at I mean, he's good for the
Mm.
band. He's good for the band because everybody else stands out so well.
That's true. He sits in the pocket. He does what he's supposed to do. I
Yeah,
respect that.
yeah,
He
yeah,
just that's all he needs to do. He just
yeah.
needs to do that.
Let everybody else shine, Lars.
There you go.
Vince, don't sue me.
Exactly.
All right,
So what's
jumping
next?
into the next album, we
Oh
have
yeah, man.
yes, right here. So 1999, guys, Slipknot's self-titled album. This for me, and granted, I had listened to, I mentioned Metallica, I mentioned Iron Maiden. Uh, Having my dad around, my taste went, all over the place. I had, influence of Testament, of, Anthrax, Stormtroopers of Death, just lots of thrash. Definitely tons and tons of thrash growing up as a kid. But 1999 for me was kind of, being about, I guess, 11 years old was really when I started branching out into finding, my own music. And I don't know if that was that way for you, Kevin, as far as like really starting to kind of grab onto things that, I mean, granted, you had a base core of things and maybe even had some selective albums that you enjoyed prior to that as a kid. But I feel like, being about like 9, 10, going into 11 years old, like that was really like where I started finding my own stuff. I'm like, ooh, what is that? Ooh, what is that? And this was one of them.
Yeah, I think you and I built our foundation from our dads.
Yeah.
And I think when I found my sound, and this is I won't go on I'll go on a quick tangent here. When I found my sound, it was from guitar playing, and what was easier for me to play at the time was pop punk. So I found my like well and punk itself
Yeah.
because there's a huge gap in my discography where I go from metal to punk to actual like punk and then pop punk, and then it all came back full circle again
Yeah.
with metal. So, and I think, but yeah, there's a good. It's around that like I think mine was 11 or 12. I think when I really started finding my own
Yeah. Just
finding
finding
things
your
for
sound.
myself. Like, let me, I you start getting friends. Friends will start showing you things that they like instead of latching on to your parents. You kind of start latching on to your friends to kind of stay, in the now or in the know with everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was yeah. I'm actually surprised we don't have a double yet of like stuff you've done or you put on here. I'm
We will.
surprised. But
If
this
not,
album,
yeah,
oh, Slipknot, man, this was a good album.
it
They
was.
created it. They created well, not completely, but they mainstreamed it,
They did.
hands down.
They were one of I mean, I don't care who has an objection to this. This album paved the way for bringing metal into the mainstream. I wanna and again, reintroducing, let's say, I feel, 'cause again, I mean, metal was huge in the '80s and then, of course, we had grunge movement and things like that, but I feel like S Slipknot certainly, I mean, this is, again, just my opinion that this was one of the heavier bands to bring this sort of sound back into, like, a mainstream sort of feel. I mean,
For our audio listeners, he has the picture of the self-titled Slipknot album on the screen.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, the Slipknot was and still are, in some regards, but it was a movement. Like, this was a movement when these guys came out. I mean, between, the entire band's insane. Joey Jordison's drumming on this album. When you think about nu metal, like, at the time, and you had things like Korn and Limp Bizkit, and which, also things I grew up with, but this, I mean, what other album or band at the time can you think that had this new metal sound that had, borderline, you know, death metal drumming like going on it, like double bass, just this like intense like blast beats in new metal.
Yeah,
Like
Corn was heavy, but the drummer followed Fieldy, I think, if I remember my Corn correctly.
yeah,
I think he more so followed the bassist
yeah,
to play. Where
I
yes,
believe you're right.
like Slipknot was my my fuck.
Yo, yeah, dude. I had this album on repeat. I know my mother did not like me listening to this album that much, but who's gonna stop me? Dad snuck the tape my way, said, "Don't let your mother hear this." But there I go, playing it in the car. "What is this? What are you listening to?"
It's just fuck it all,
Slipknot.
fuck this world.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sit in the back seat,
On my way to Christian Baptist school,
just
cranking Slipknot in the morning.
cover your fucking ears, hoping Mama Dukes don't hear it.
Or no, well, I'd sit in the front seat and I'd just like turn it down like real quick, like, oh, I know this is, and I'm like, just start talking. And then like, I'd turn it back up. And I'm like,
Hey,
oh.
mommy, you know you look beautiful today. Oh, thanks, son.
Meanwhile, fuck it all. Fuck this world.
Dude, this is a
Yeah.
great album. This is a
Fantastic
really
album.
good
Yeah.
album.
Yeah. So top songs, Sick, of course. Like the intro going into Sick, and the whole thing I think is like ooh, just that epic, creepy build up into that. Spit It Out, another fantastic song. That's a song they really hone now at their shows. It's like everybody kind of gets on the ground and does this. It's called the jump the fuck up. And so it's like the
Oh
whole
yeah, yeah.
crowd like just explodes, like 20,000 people, 30,000 people just jumping up in the air. And Liberate. Liberate was the other big song. I mean the album in general is good, but those three always stuck out for me. So yeah, let's not to keep going on Slipknot. Let's go to the next song, next album here.
Oh
Yeah. So Lamb of God, As the Palaces Burn. Um,
yeah. Why this album?
there was so I had the new metal movement. I don't know if you recall. So Headbangers Ball with Jamie Josta back in the day
Oh
on
yeah, on
MTV.
MTV2, right? Was it
Was it
MTV2?
MTV2? It was, I
I,
believe,
I
MTV2
I think
before
I
then.
think it was MTV2. Yeah.
Yeah. The There was a commercial. So they would always kind of do like I remember seeing a lot of cool commercials. So they would have Headbangers Ball and do the music videos, Jamie Jost hosting. But in between, besides normal commercials, they would typically do albums that are coming out, like a commercial for like whatever album that was coming out. I remember vividly to this day Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory commercial being like thrown into that around that same time. Another one was Lamb of God as the Palaces Burn, and it was Ruin. Like, this is the yard of ruin. Like it was Randy when he still had his like hair like
Yep.
dangling in front of his face. He's like in a church and he's like in this preacher's face. I was like, what is this
I need
dark?
all of this.
This guy's voice. What is this? Like, I mean, Randy has like one of the top. I mean, when he's on and out, you know it's him. Like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Hearing
yeah.
him in those, I was like, dude, what is this? I need to get my hands on this. Surprisingly, backtracking, back when I so granted, probably at this point, I think was on the verge of high speed internet. For those that don't know about dial up, prior to this, when we had dial up, we used to go to mp3.com, me and my dad. So then they had a metal section. So it would always be like, like a free metal track of the week or month, something like that. I didn't connect the dots till way later, but there was a name that stuck out that said they were from Richmond, Virginia, and it wasn't Lamb of God, it was Burn the Priest. So this is prior to them being Lamb of God. So I guess for many years I've had this infatuation with what was Burn the Priest, Lamb of God, but I remember downloading what probably took about 25 minutes, this one MP3 of Burn the Priest. Fast forwarding, I see on Headbangers Ball the commercial for As the Palaces Burn getting ready to release, talking about or in stream, having a segment from The Art of Ruin in it. But I feel like this album for me, this is one of those albums that kind of solidified that whole new wave of American metal. Just that early, and there was plenty of bands that did it. Just around that same time frame with As I Lay Dying and Darkest Hour and Kill Switch Engage, Shadows Fall, like all of those guys are a huge, pinnacle point of like that new wave of American heavy metal. But this was part of it. And I feel like this album really set a standard. And not to mention really close to our, I mean, so pretty
Yeah,
much our
right
stomping
down the
grounds.
street. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so that's
yeah. You hear this album and kind of like Ralph Wiggum's on Simpsons. It's like I like this now. I like
yeah,
men now.
yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah, that's I mean, I
yeah,
pretty much but yeah, this was so I mean, they got more polished over the years, but this was such a raw, like, gritty album, and also another album I can listen to from front to back. Like, there is not a single bad or skippable song on this album. It's just relentless from A to Z, just absolutely annihilates. Top songs, Ruin, of course, Purified, and, Devil in God's Country. That song has a breakdown in it that I I would punch holes in my wall right now if I think I heard that breakdown. Like, it's just something it just hits, dude. It is such a so, yeah, that is I don't know what else I can say about it. If you haven't heard this album, I highly recommend. I mean, of course, any of these other albums I recommend, but if you're a huge metalhead, more into the whole heavier side of things and some of these other bands that I mentioned, go back and listen to this album. It is hands down like a top favorite. I am at this moment wearing a Lamb of God hat, so if that tells you anything, uh,
your
you know,
roots.
it's roots, man. Like it's stuck with me.
That's it.
So going on to next album.
That was a good pick though, man.
Oh,
What, bro?
why don't
What is
sorry,
with Rod's?
hold on. One technical difficulties. 1 minute.
Why am I watching
I don't
and
know.
seeing a half naked
Anyway,
picture?
yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what the
For
hell's going on.
listeners, Rod Stewart keeps showing up on this fucking screen, and I have no idea why. No shirt on this time.
So next album on that note, Pantera, Far Beyond Driven. This album came out in 1994. So mingled in, and it didn't. I got into Pantera a lot heavier when I got older, but this album, and specifically again as being a kid, this album artwork stuck out to me because, mind you, and for those who can't see it, it is the X-ray of a skull with a massive drill bit going into this guy's forehead. And mind you, just says
Quite
"Far Beyond Driven" on the cover.
quite painful if you ask me. It looks rough.
Oh yeah,
Looks a little rough.
this is an absolutely additionally another relentless album. I think probably one of Pantera's most heaviest. They definitely doubled down on the heavy during this time. To my understanding, I think this was a response to the grunge movement at the time, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Like this was, I mean, at the time you had, Nirvana and Alice in Chains and all these guys coming out that, mind you, I mean, also great bands. I mean, I have nothing wrong. I love Alice in Chains, but I think for these guys are like, what the hell is this? Coming from, Cowboys from Hell and
Yeah.
Vulgar Display of Power.
That was my first Pantera album. Was
Oh
Cowboys
yeah,
from Hell when I first
fantastic
heard it.
album. But and all of them were mingled together, but this just has this grit and just you can almost feel the hate, and I think that's why I say this them being like they're double downing on this whole grunge movement, being like, fuck this, here we are, like sort of thing. Metal still alive and well. Here's our album, and it you can feel that through this entire album.
Bro, that's
This
not the album. That's just Phil.
that is Phil. Oh, that was Phil. That was Dime. That was Vinny. That was Rex. That was all those boys just throwing 300% into this album. Um, I the way it hits, what is it? Strength Beyond Strength, I believe is, like, the first album that comes in or the first song that comes in on that album, and it just punches you in the teeth. It puts a drill bit in your forehead, dude, and the rest of the album just you're just, "Oh god," like, it's
Okay. Makes you
um,
mentally unstable.
100%, 100%. Yeah, I cannot recommend this enough. Jump in let's just jump to the next one, so, big Pantera fan, guys, so, yeah, if you haven't heard that, another one, staple. Definitely listen to Far Beyond Driven if you haven't. And final on my list, Kill Switch Engage's Alive or Just Breathing, 2002. So, this I
Bro, so I
heard
just I'm
yeah.
gonna give you a heads up. Some of these we're gonna be talking about different albums. Just
Oh,
an FYI.
that's fine. I mean, well, it's hard. It's hard to, like we're probably gonna touch on a lot of these same bands because this is, like these are some of these iconic bands that shaped us for the time. You can't ignore these bands
Yeah, when you have
from when we grew up.
when your parents or when I say that our dads were very similar, like they are extremely similar. So it's really hard to not play tummy sticks with some of these albums that we have going on.
Tummy sticks.
Yeah, man.
I plays tummy sticks.
All right,
But
so
yeah,
Alive or Just Breathing. Why this
yeah.
album? I mean,
So
I'm pretty sure I know why.
yeah, well, I will say, so my dad went to the store. He would go, like, every Friday and go buy something where he was reading what Metalheads was still a thing, or before you could just go on the internet and look up or even listen to, like, something and as easy as you can now. He was like, "This album had really good reviews." He said, "It's not really my cup of tea. It's good, but I think you'll like it." And gives me the album. I think he bought it, listened to it a couple times, and gave it to me, like, the week maybe, like, days after it came out. When picked it up, bought it, listened to it, and I said, "Okay, I'll check it out." And I put that on, and then "The time approaches." And I'm like, "Oh,
Dun, 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 dun.
what?" And again, this was another pinnacle album that shaped that new wave of American heavy metal. And mind you, this album, I heard this before I heard, Lamb of God. I think Lamb of God came out 2003 with As the Palaces Burn. This came out 2002. So I was jamming to this prior to that. And this honestly was like my main introduction into metalcore. And as much as you love it, as much as I love it,
Yeah,
this is me and Kevin's bonding moment. When we first really became friends, we realized how much we love metalcore together, between Killswitch Engage and August Burns Red and all these like different guys. And that was like our and of course we're realizing other bands outside of that. But I feel like this was a really metalcore was a defining moment for us being like, oh yeah, yeah, I like those guys. Like
yeah, yeah. Really, it
um
really was.
but
Man,
this was an album to me, and I know a lot of people have their opinions, about the singer at the time. And granted, mind you, Howard Jones was an amazing, amazing singer. He took Kill Switch to another level, and I will respect him for that for certain. But you know, this was such a raw album and such like an introduction to that whole, breakdowns, melodic chorus, like just the staples and like pinnacles that make up just the formula of metalcore. I feel like was in this album, like this, and my a few other other bands as well. But this was just one of those defining bands that I latched onto at the time. That was like, holy shit, what is this genre of music? Before I even knew what metalcore was,
I think
before it
there
even
were
had a label.
I think there were bands that were trying to do it, and I think this sound was starting to get at that time after 2000. I
Yeah.
think a lot of bands were trying to figure out the metalcore sound. I think Killswitch Engage just did it first.
Yeah,
I
I
think I think them and As I Lay Dying like
100%. Yeah.
did it.
So I think As I Lay Dying was
They
like the
they
year
found the
after
sound
this.
quickest. They found the sound. They found the sound the quickest, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Because then you had Shadows Fall, All the Remains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those
Great
and
fucking bands.
and those man, those early years were so good. Like there's like back
Yeah,
to back to back to back, just amazing albums.
yeah, it
Uh,
really was. Like every year was just fucking bangers coming out.
yeah, and then I mean, of course, you got to. I mean, Adam Dukowitz on this, was I think the producer, of course, of most of their stuff. But
Yeah, I think,
I mean,
and I think he did the. I think he played drums for this album as well.
yeah, yeah, he hadn't. I don't think he was guitarist yet, or they hadn't flicked because I don't think
I can't remember.
he's all over the place with Kill Switch. But I
Man's
think
done
you're right.
everything.
I think you're right. You might be right about him doing drums on this album. But I mean, that man is such a pioneer now in like the production aspect and metal. Like he's such a god in that regard. I mean, he's just a top tier producer at this point now, and this was I feel like a shining moment for him. This really making this alive, or are we just breathing?
But that was
Yeah,
the dumbest fucking joke I've heard.
sorry.
But okay,
Yeah, so that kind of wraps up my top 6 albums here.
that's
So
pretty good, man.
yeah,
Those
thank
are
you.
some bangers. I got to tell
They
you,
are.
those were some bangers. I do real quick. I do want to do a mailbag, if that's okay. If we could do that.
Yeah,
I did grab a couple. I'm gonna get one random here, if that's okay.
yeah, I'm down. Let's hear it. Was this from a DM
God,
or from a social media or?
yeah, it was from Instagram. God damn it, dude! I don't know who this fucking Daryl from West Virginia is, but he sent another one, and I'm hesitant to read it. Should I
Just
read
read it.
this?
Just read it. I
So
mean,
this
I
one,
gave him advice last time, so
well,
it
so
can't
this
be any
one's for you
worse.
again. This one's for you specifically again.
Why the hell me?
Dude, I have no idea. I have no idea. Hey,
Mm.
Mike, is it normal? Dude, I don't know if I can read this. Hey, Mike, is it normal to wake up gagging on pea-sized tonsil stones every morning? It is.
Fuck no. It is not normal, Daryl from West Virginia. I'm gonna give you straight up advice right now. If you're waking up out of a dead sleep gagging from tonsil stones, you need some fucking help.
Well, he says he got it because of an operation he had recently.
Oh, now I feel bad.
I asked him what the operation was. He said it was a bad operation to remove bone spurs.
What the?
He said he did break one in half, and there was. Dude, I just fucking can't with this guy. Who is this dude? I broke one in half. I'm assuming he's talking about his tonsil stones. He broke one in
Okay.
half, and there was a lot of blood in the core, and it was quote unquote very yolky.
Oh my fucking god. That's absolutely horrifying. Um,
We got to get this guy on the fucking podcast, dude. Who is
and
this
this is
guy?
what was the question again? Where I see I get
He asked if
so
it
I
was
get
normal, if
was
it
it
was normal
normal?
to wake up gagging with
I
pea-sized
was
tonsils. Dude,
man,
tonsil stones smell so fucking bad. Dude.
I don't that's absolute like it's like goat's milk, like
I
goat
think
cheese, dude.
I should probably turn the mailbag off.
No.
If we're only gonna get Daryl from West Virginia responses.
No, please leave it on. Daryl, if you're listening to us, and I hope to God you heard our response last time, you know, the suggestion of 4 knuck deep or fist full, however you want to approach it. Same applies here, bro. If you need I don't really know how to cure this issue that you have. It sounds pretty fucking vile, but I will say
He
that
sounds like a vile man.
he sounds pretty rotten.
He's rotten to the core. The
Yeah,
doctor's rotten to the core.
he's absolutely disgusting human being. But
Dr. Chris Reeves.
brother, if you're listening to this podcast and not just trolling us from social
Brother!
media, Look here, brother.
Brother.
I heard you got the raw ass tonsil stones, and I want you to know that you need fucking help. No, get your tonsils out, bro. Go get, I mean, it's never too late to, get those bad boys taken out because that's just absolutely fucking foul. And I don't know how you could ever be in a relationship in such a, I mean, maybe some people like that shit, but you know what, bro? It's never too late to change. And change, I mean, go get surgery as a fucking adult and get that nasty shit taken care of.
All right, now that we got Daryl from West Virginia out of the fucking way,
Yeah.
we're gonna go ahead and break this down into two parts. Last thing we want is to have people listen to like an hour and a half long podcast. So that way two parts will be easier for you guys to kind of find if there's something you wanted to listen to or just switch around. A lot easier to do it in two parts. So if you have any questions for Mike about any of his albums, specific songs to listen to, any
Mhm.
recommendations that he might have, go ahead and hit him a comment. But yeah, we will see you guys on part two. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.